So bringing souls into repentance while also allowing them their agency, I think that's the balance, right? It's like the starfish parable where there's a child who's throwing starfish in the water and some older adult comes and says, "Why are you doing this?" And they say, "Well, I mean, it doesn't make any difference. There's a billion starfish on the beach." I said, "Well, it makes a difference, that one." I love that story. It's a good story. It's a good, really good story, but I think we can't think of people as starfish though, because we can't literally pick up people and throw them into church. We can force some people to go to church. Some people under our stewardship, we can force to go to church, but we can't force people to go to church, and we certainly can't force people to repentance. Like we're forcing the starfish back into the ocean, right? We're physically picking them up and forcing them back in. What if they didn't want to be in? What if that is their sacred ritual or something? That's like something they do. That's like this holy situation, and they're picked up and like, "Oh no, I've lost my opportunity, eternal salvation." Maybe they think that. We don't know. We're forcing them back into the water, right? I don't think that's the case with starfish, but it might be the case with people. So we definitely don't force because agency, right? And also the starfish situation, if we are forcing people like starfish, then that's Satan's plan. That's literally Satan's plan. It's like, I will make everybody be good. You know, everyone's lost up on the beach. There's billions of people stuck up on the beach. And me and my crew, we're just going to go through and throw them all back in the ocean. We're going to bring them all back. We're going to save everyone. And God's like, people aren't starfish though. Like, that doesn't do any people any good. There's a different point, you know? And also, Satan, you don't understand how the whole thing works together. You don't understand the whole business. You don't understand that there's a life cycle and a death cycle, and that the starfish play an important role in the ecosystem, and maybe these mass die-offs are part of the whole, and maybe the seagulls get a snack. And if we were to save all these starfish, then the seagulls would all die, and we'd become in some giant Simpsons-like conundrum where then we have to bring in the gorillas, and the solution, well, they will just freeze in the winter. Now we don't have a gorilla problem, right? And it's just like this crazy solution. And really, we could just let everything have their own agency. And like, yes, child, throw the starfish into the ocean. There is a good lesson there. There are good lessons there, for sure. For sure. But there's also a good lesson in the other side of the lesson, which is that actually a wise decision? Is that actually something that we always need to be doing? And are people starfish? And I would say the repentance process is different than just picking them up and chucking them in. Or just having people show up to church. You know, it could be a start. You could encourage. I think first it takes understanding yourself, understanding that speck in your own eye before you try to get the beam out of your brother's eye, understanding first, you know, what it is for you, and then go on to do it. Because if you don't understand the whole ecosystem, then you can't understand what your actions are actually doing in reality. And since we can't understand the whole ecosystem, I think that's what Ecclesiastes points to. And they're like, you can't know how the baby grows in the womb. Well, we literally can now, but not really. Like, we can't, we can't know how consciousness enters, or when, or why, or how. And like, we don't understand like why it happened. I don't know. I guess there's a better metaphor. I'll try to think of it. But that's what Ecclesiastes, I think, was pointing to, was that in the God realm, it's so much more complicated. Like, we can't understand how all of our actions and all the repercussions, like the painter who painted my jail cell, had no idea I was coming to jail, had no idea who I even was, likely. Somebody painted my jail cell and left the drip on the ceiling. And that drip made me realize that all of our actions, no matter how insignificant, can have huge consequences. The person who dripped the paint sparked that epiphany in me. Were they ever to know that? That's so complex. God knew that, right? So like all of our little actions could lead someone to repentance, and we should try, and we do get better at it. And we can understand and learn and try and, do what God says to do and follow life prescriptions that people have said work in the past of like loving your enemies and stuff. And we can all come up to a better thing. So yes, we can do stuff. And I think that's the starfish thing though, is that we are doing our efforts. We're trying, but at the end of the day, it's up to God. Like we don't know how the ecosystem all works out. We're doing our best. We're doing what we know to do, to be a good person, to not be a jerk. We greet people in church on Sunday. We walk around and we greet people in church because we want to do the right thing. We want to lead them to Christ. We want them to know that we love them with a Christ-like love. Even if they're strangers, we want to show that love for them. And so we do that. That's our small part. But we have no idea the whole ecosystem because we don't know that person we just interacted with absolutely did not want an interaction. That person hates that. That action of someone randomly, generally greeting you in church, just walking around, shaking everybody's hands. You hate that action on so many levels. You're sitting there cringing, knowing they're coming to you, absolutely loathing that action. You hate it with all of your soul and guts. You're vibrating with the destructive loathing of this situation happening to you. And here they come shaking your hand. And you just give them grace because you can see their love through it. You know it's an action done out of love. And even though you cringily hate this action with every fiber of your being, you still can give them a little grace and say, I love you too, brother. Thank you for interacting with me in the best way you know how. And I will give you a little grace, But please, when you visit my church and I don't interact with you, give me a little grace too. And realize I'm doing what I feel like you would want based on what I would. I'm treating you as I would want myself to be treated. I'm treating you as myself. I'm not greeting you out of courtesy because I wouldn't want to be greeted. Do you see? So you give me a little grace in not greeting you, and I will give you a little grace in greeting me, and we can all treat each other in love, and we can all come up a little bit. We can all understand that we're all different. We might not know what's on everybody's heart, but we can know they're trying their best, acting in love, and we can forgive, and we can move on. And I think that's like the whole thing. I think that's a major part of the gospel, is learning how to forgive and interact and have grace